Mr. Wade Norwood. He told me about a young man that I would probably be interested in, and probably helping me out with my magazine when I just came out with it. Mr. Norwood put the meeting together, and I met this young man, and he was very eclectic, had his own style, was very hungry, and in the process, I believe he was just putting his company together. As we know now, it's called Brotherhood Production. You might know him, you might not know him, but if you don't know him, you're going to know him this morning. He goes by the name The Gatekeeper, but he's better known as Mr. Adrian Elam. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Man, I'm blessed. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good to see you.
Oh, man, good to see you. You've been on your grind, man. You've been on your grind.
That's all I can do.
That's it. And there's another gentleman that I won't say per se I watched him grow, but I know I've known him a couple of years, several years, through another young man he's been on his grind, and he has wrote a book. He has truly been on his grind, and he is better known as the Audacious Believer. You might know him, you might not know him. If you don't know him, you would know him this morning. His name is Mr. Dante J. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Man, thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here. And
I brought one of my really good friends. This.
Go ahead, introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Can I give you one just real quick? This is like one of the few people who I know work harder than me. Always on the grind, always at work. But she has such an amazing heart, and she's a fierce advocate in the community. I love her dearly. Miss Bianca Castro.
Hello.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Again, I wanted to, like I said, have you on this show so we could speak on homosexuality, but I know, Adrian, you told me, can I change that name from homosexuality to queerness? We're going to get straight into it. What is queerness? Why would you change homosexuality to queerness?
Because that's kind of homosexuality is kind of a word that's imposed on our community.
Okay.
Queerness, I like it because homosexuality, people just automatically assume that it's like, first of all, they kind of just go right into the sex part, and they just go right into like these behaviors and like, oh, you're a guy who likes to have sex with guys, or you're a woman who likes to have sex with women, and it's just like, well, one, those aren't the only two genders in existence. Two, it's a lot more complex than that. There's a culture around it. We have our own language, just identities, and it's an identity piece. So it's queerness in for my definition is more like the othering, and like this, I'm not one or the other, I'm something else entirely. And again, there's a rich history culture to it. You can't really walk two steps without finding somebody who's queer, this, that, or the third.
Okay.
So that's why I prefer to use it.
Okay, and how about you, Dante?
For me, I didn't really know. For me, it was a coming out, like a coming out process. So I didn't know anything about the terms. I didn't know anything about the culture. I didn't know anything about what it meant to be a part of the community of anything else besides the community that I came from. So for me, defining myself was more so not by a label of queer or gay. It was just becoming myself. So I do appreciate the term queer because it does expand more of it gives people more options to fill a place in the community rather than to just feel like I'm a gay person or that I'm going to be othered because I'm gay.
Okay, let me ask you this, Dante, real quick. Piggyback off what you coming out the closet, okay? How was that like?
For me, I grew up in a very institutionalized household. I won't say the institution just because I know it sparks a lot of controversy. The church, the black church, I was just like, and for me, that was very hard because I knew that I had these feelings for other people and I had all these feelings from within myself, but I was constantly wrestling with who I was and constantly trying to hide who I was. And there's this fear of being caught being myself. And that kind of inspired me to go on this self-discovery journey where I had to learn what I wanted and not what everyone else wanted me to have. And that journey led me to write the book, Free to Be Me, I'm Not My Issues. And while I was writing that book, even after I wrote the book, I still wasn't comfortable in my own skin. There was still this fear, like, oh my gosh, I have to explain who I am to people who knew who I was.
How was your family thinking about it?
My family, I come from a lot of manly men, like the traditional thought of what a man is. So they were not, at first they weren't very receiving of it. But what happens is they saw that I was comfortable with myself, and my confidence in myself helped them love me and love me for who I was. And I kind of think that kind of empowered them to say, okay, if he's okay with himself, this isn't a decision for him, this isn't something that's a choice. That's a lot of times people believe that who you are is a choice. And once they saw that it really wasn't a choice for me, this is who I am at the root of who I am, it's made them love me more.
How about you, April?
When I came out,
How was it for you?
my mom said she knew, like she just knew. She was like, I'm your mom. Of course I knew since the day you were. I just knew. My dad, not so much. Just same. He's from like a Southern Baptist family, and it's just like they just have these really rigid views of how like men should act, women should act, this, that, the third, and I'm just like, that's so toxic. And even like that side of the family, I told them, when I came out, they were all like, they all had something to say and blah blah blah, and I said, that's fine. I don't have to be like rooted with you. I don't have to see you ever again.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, if you don't want to sack me in that third, I don't have to come around. I don't have to see you. I don't come to your birthday. I don't care. Right? I have like, and I think it's a little bit. I think it's a common thing for a lot of folks in the community whose families end up disowning them, and they have a lot harsher stories than mine. You just have chosen family, and it's like you find those people who you're on one accord with, and you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're just now tuning in, you're listening to Our Voice Talk Radio, and I'm your host, Kenny Jean. And this morning we have beautiful guests in the building speaking on queerness and our community and what it is all about. Wanted to piggyback off something, not a choice. Now that's something that's so debatable in the community. Are you born gay? Are you born straight? Is it a choice? I mean, how is that? Because I'm learning. I want to get educated. So, and again, I definitely want to approach the matter with respect. So I don't want to say anything disrespectful or anything wrong. So again, educate me. Is it a choice?
I think the only choice, and I speak to myself, was to be happy. I chose to be happy. I chose to stop living a lie. I knew at a very young age that I wasn't the gender they tried to make me be. My family, like yours, grew up in church. My family's Pentecostal, so they were very strict in being any type of flamboyant, any type of feminine was not acceptable. So, again, I believe I was born this way. The only choice I made was to be happy and stop living a lie.
Okay, well, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, it's just not a choice. Like I don't know what if I can no longer choose to be straight than I can to choose not to be black. Like it's part of my makeup.
So you would agree that are you born that way?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to say something?
No, I agree. People are born this way. I think that a lot of times that just because of societal pressures and pressures from our family that we have to make a choice of whether or not we want to accept that. There's constantly pressure to conform to other people's opinions, conforms to who they expect you to be and who you should be. And one of my favorite quotes that someone's always told me is to never allow people to should on you. You should be true to yourself and become yourself. And that kind of helped me to really liberate myself and live the life that I wanted to live, not what other people wanted me to live.
Let me ask you this: what would you like to tell families out there that's coping with is that probably just found out or was just approached that their child is gay and they're like spazzing out? What can you tell them for them to calm down or just
It was actually funny because a little while after I came out, I had a parent call me because I was working with some children at the church, and she called me and she was in boohoo and tearing, like crying, like, oh my gosh, my son is gay. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And it was crazy because now I had a choice. I had a choice to either stand in my truth or I had a choice to shrink back to who I was and to take on that ignorant mindset of the institutional mindset to either oppress that child or to comfort them. And the advice I gave her was that your child didn't change. The only thing that changed about them was your perception of them. They were always the same person. The only thing that
Say
changed.
that one more time.
Your child did not change, but only thing that changed about them is your perception. So once your perception changes, I've always been who I am. It's just now that other people know their perception can either accept me for who I am or their perception can either be rejecting of me.
Yeah, it's get out your feelings. It's not it's not your life to live, and I think a lot of times parents like to impose a lot of their things on their children without actually trying to get to know who their kids are. Like, kids develop their own personality, style, this, that, the third by like age of 2, 3. You already see them. They talk in a certain way. They move in a certain way. You know what I mean? And it's like I think that folks should stop doing so much imposing on their own kids and really start to, treat them with the respect and dignity that they have. Ask them questions. Figure out what's going on with them, what they think, what they believe, what they're dealing with, and things like that. And again, they're your child, so you should love them regardless. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
That was your whole
That's
key.
true. Oh, but you missed a lot. Really.
Good morning. Want to give a shout out to Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Virginia, Connecticut.
Okay.
To all the listeners out there, good morning.
Yeah.
Man, if you're just now tuning in, you're almost 30 minutes late. Just wanted to have a wonderful show this morning. I think a very educational topic. Wonderful guests in the building, two brothers that I know well, and happy that they took the invite so they can help educate our community. Again, when it comes to the Black and brown community, homosexuality and queerness and the LGBTQ is very taboo. So I just wanted to get some understanding, some clear understanding on the movement and that. So again, I welcome Mr. Adrian Elam, Dante.
Thank
Good
you.
morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
And Bianca, thank you for
Good
being
morning.
here.
Thank you.
Again, I wanted to get some clear understanding. They have several terms when it comes to. Now, let me ask you this: when someone says, or when someone is addressing, how can I say? Someone is addressing. What do we call a lifestyle? What is like? Some people say, oh, that lifestyle, or
It's an identity.
It's an identity.
It's who someone is.
okay, so it's an identity.
Mm.
Okay. So the identity, they have several terms, intersex, pansexual,
Mhm.
asexual. What is intersex?
Let's stay out.
Not
Oh,
even.
they don't know.
We gonna look up Google.
You're right, let's ask.
I know asexual is just someone who doesn't have sex. Like they're just
Mhm.
they're not. Sex isn't really a part of their. Yeah. They're just someone who who kind of. Yeah, they just don't.
Yeah.
Okay. They don't have sex.
Nope. It's just
Yeah.
not. It's not a stimulant. It's not anything. It's just they're,
Yeah.
emotionally, romantically. That kind of way.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Again, that's another reason why I don't like the term homosexuality. People like to focus it on just sex, and it's like it has nothing to do with that at the end of the day, really. You don't want to do it. You don't do it.
Did you pull something up?
Yes, intersex are people born with any of several variations in sex characteristics, including sex hormones or genitals, so hermaphrodites,
Oh, okay.
which I think the proper term now is intersex.
Oh, okay.
That's
And what is pansexual?
Pansexual is that you are attracted to the person, not their gender.
Yes.
So instead of focusing on man or woman, you're focusing on the person themselves.
Okay. And all others?
So many.
I mean, no, at least.
There are so many.
Yeah, so
not
many.
even funny.
Yeah, Yeah, so
I think
in
there's
terms of this-
IQA now.
I-
I don't.
Queerness is where I start and stop.
let me ask you this: lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, and queer, LGBTQ. Would you consider that a movement? Is it a movement? Is it
I would consider it not the identity of movement, but it's almost like being black. That's not the movement, but civil rights movement. The movement to be there's movements that are attached to it, but not the actual identity being the movement. Would you say?
you have something to say, Bianca?
No, I was gonna say.
Just wanna say something.
There's just, I know everybody likes to call things movements and this, that, and the third, but I mean, we've been here forever.
It's just
Like-
now that we're in your face. They wanna
Not
call it a
even in your
movement.
face. It's just people done forgot. It's just when Europeans came and just.
Well, I kind of
separated
agree with
out.
that, Bianca, what you just said. It's like, okay, what you just said, Adrian, is very true. That's been around forever. That is true. Okay, that identity has been around forever. But it seems like it's not more in your face than it's ever been.
And I think more so in the black and brown community. We see these people on Love and Hip Hop. We see these people on mainstream television shows where before it was just people who are Caucasian, like Will and Grace. Now we're seeing these
Yeah.
people in hip hop and in the black community on these TV shows, trans people, gay people. So I think now it's more in your face. People want to call it a movement. No, we're just now stopping from being behind the scenes, and now we're in front of the camera.
Yeah, I got you. So basically, is it fair to say that the identity has always been behind the scenes?
No.
I don't. Yeah. I don't
It's,
think so.
no, like it's there's we can take it back. You know, everybody. The number one thing I always get is people want to pull the whole like, oh, this is an African and it's not who we are, and white people brought this to the continent. And so it's just like, but you haven't done your history to know that queer and trans people have been integral parts of all indigenous societies. You know, Native Americans and other indigenous folks. They had 5 genders that they acknowledged.
Two-spirit.
Two-spirit folks, trans folks, they had 5, just everybody, and in different cultures around the world. And even why I take on the role, I tell people gatekeeper, is because back in West Africa, queer and trans people were gatekeepers. They were responsible for making sure their community was in line with the spiritual realm as well as the physical world. So make sure y'all not burning down everything, and you're just in line and in balance with everything. And so they were highly respected, integral parts, and it wasn't until the Europeans brought over Christianity that they came and like they started implementing homophobia and transphobia and things like that as a way to dismantle those communities.
I just like to think. I think that a lot of times that, like we said, we've always been there. But there was a couple years ago, the download movement was, or download society was exposed in the media, where people were talking about those who were living one lifestyle publicly and one lifestyle privately. I think that it's not so much that it's new, but that it was finally someone who was either willing to stand up in their truth, or who was either had to be pulled out of their truth by someone else, who was thrown into the light, and they're like, okay, well, now that I'm here, cat's out of the bag, this is what's going on. So I think that the even though there's no don't ask, don't tell policy in the military, I think there continues to be a don't ask, don't tell policy within a lot of our churches and institutions, because people still are scared. They're scared of people's perceptions. They're scared of people's opinion. They're scared that if they walk in their truth, they're going to lose their family members. They're going to lose their friends. They're going to lose those opportunities. And that's just not, and the people that you lose, I don't know if you can even count them as a loss.
They're not.
Can you even count those people as a loss if they really didn't love you for who you are? So I think that's something that's really important to really think about, when, especially for those who are on the other side, who are throwing that hate bashing and who are throwing those negative words, that these are your loved ones. These aren't strangers most times. These are people who you have either grown up with or people you've worked with, and now you're going to allow who they are to change your perception of them simply because of ignorance or because of your upbringing. I dare you to open up your mind. I dare you to learn their truth, and I dare you to listen.
Let me ask you this, okay, where it has been in your face now, television, do you think that it's good that we have these young shows that exercise the identity to young children?
I think yes. Children tend to be more accepting than adults, and it's kind of sad that a child can understand what someone is transitioning. I've explained it to my little cousins, and they've all understood it way before their parents did, and they were so more accepting and calling me the correct name when I told them it's Bianca now. Hi, Bianca.
Mhm.
They were so more understanding, and it's like, how can a child's mind understand the concept that I'm now who I am and call me who I am than a grown adult?
Mhm.
So I think it's important that we stop hiding things from children. They're a lot smarter than what you think.
Okay, now let me ask you this. Now, a kid is still young and their mind is still developing. Do you think it's confusing for kids to see two of the same sex engaging instead of, I don't know.
I mean, I guess part of, again, it's like, what does that mean when you mean say engaging? Like walking down the street holding hands, sitting and hugging each other? Like, oftentimes kids actually have really intimate, non-sexual relationships with their friends and things like that. But parents are usually the ones who are like, oh my God, don't do that. That's bad, that's nasty, that's this, that's that.
Learned
It's just
behavior.
like, what are you teaching them? And then you have to look at how those kind of, how we socialize children, how that turns into violent behavior.
Meaning?
So like toxic masculinity, you have people who, whether or not they actually want to be or they're trained men, most men in general, but we're talking about black men, they're socialized to be these hardcore, you gotta do this, that, it's not nice to show your emotions, you're not supposed to do this, it makes you look weak, and that translates into, ironically, violence against women, queer folk, trans people, anyone who's not a black man. And that's where it comes from. Because they're not allowed to be who they are, who they want to be. There are some people who just like, if they want to engage sexually with another man, just like, do child, do it. Who cares? Like that. How does that affect my life?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And then-
now let me ask you this. Okay, how does it affect your life now? How does it affect one's life where, I know Dante mentioned this not too long ago about the DL thing, the brothers that's down low. I think that's affecting, that's pretty bad for, you know what I mean?
I mean, there's a double standard though. People don't mind two women being together. It turns a lot of men on. When they have their own ideas of like what that'll look like and they're like, I'd love to see Nicki Minaj and Beyonce just.
But then even on top of that, when we tell DL men to come to their truth, we then bash them.
Mhm.
We then tell them they're no longer a man because they have attraction to trans women or they have attraction to other men. Then we bash them and then we tell them that they should have just stayed in the closet or stay on the DL.
Mhm.
So it's a double standard. You tell them to live their truth, but when they come out with their truth, you bash them.
Right. I think it's just the way of the world almost. It's like, be yourself. And the moment you start being yourself, they're like, wait, not like that. It's like,
Okay.
it's like,
And what I found is honestly, like most of the people who haven't, I have plenty of straight friends who like just sit and they're just chill with themselves.
Mhm.
Like they can
Because
be
they-
around all my friends, like,
and
and they're
themselves.
comfortable and they're who they are.
Right.
It's usually the ones who have a problem with it,
Mhm.
who, child,
Can you
Mhm.
repeat that for the people that
the ones who have a problem with it will be in like,
That whole part.
because they make the biggest noise.
No,
like a
seriously.
spinning wheel is the one that wants to get the oil. Like, okay.
I mean, it's serious.
Sister, are you hearing this?
I mean,
Well,
it's
if you're
serious.
just not tuning in to our voice, I'm your host, Kenny Sean, and this morning we have Mr. Dante Worth and Mr. Adrian Hillman, Ms. Bianca in the building, speaking on queerness in our community. And I wanted them to come here so they can, I guess, educate the community, educate me as well on certain words to use. Because again, for me, everything I approach it with respect, and I never want to say anything that'll be degrading or anything that'll be offensive to someone. And then I know the brothers, so definitely again don't want to say anything that's disrespectful. I want to get educated on things, and that's why they're here. And again, thank you for being here. And why are you looking at me like that? And again, just thank you for tuning in, Rochester. And we'll be right back.
Yeah.
Oh, and the trophies are definitely good.
This morning we have a wonderful guest, Dante Worth. We have Mr. Adrian Elam and Miss Bianca in the building, speaking and educating the community on what is, I won't say unknown, but what is taboo in our community, the Black and brown community, police and queerness, homosexuality, gay, is really not talked about because I believe Adrian mentioned about masculinity, about being black, strong. We avoid that conversation. But this morning I wanted to have that conversation. I would like to have a continuation because it's questions that I would like to ask down the line. But right now I just wanted to give them a platform to have their voice heard, to give some clear understanding and educate the community on what they do not know. So again, thank you so much for you all being here. Thank you for speaking your truth. Thank you for just educating. Is there anything that you would like to, Ms. Bianca, we gonna start with you. Is there anything that you would like to say before we get ready to sign off?
To all my LGBT sisters and brothers, to all my trans folks, to all our allies, remember to love yourself, to live your truth, and be unapologetically you.
I just wanna, all my queer folks, black, queer, and trans folks, just, you are loved, there's space for you, you are not a mistake, you have every right to live your full and best life. There are spaces for you here. There's Rochester Black Pride, there's the Mocha Center down on St. Paul Street, North Water Street. North Water Street. And to all my other folks, stop assuming things. It's best to ask questions. So like things like pronouns. So far there are 3 of them. There is he, him, she, her, and they, them. Yes, they, them, meaning a singular individual, not multiple people. But I always ask, what are your preferred pronouns? Because you can't assume what someone's gender is just by how they present. Okay?
Wow.
Mr. Worth?
To the city, to the county, to the world, that I want you to know that you are enough, whether you're gay, straight, queer, part of the LGBT community or not, that you are enough and that you should be secure enough in yourself that to love yourself just the way you are. You're not lacking anything, you're not missing anything, you're not even broken. Every day you're just becoming a better version of yourself. And for those around you that may see someone struggling with becoming themselves, I dare you to encourage them to be that person that you needed when you were feeling alone. The number one reason for suicide in our community is the feeling of being alone. And I think when we raise our hands and say, me too, people lose that feeling of saying, I'm alone anymore, that now I have someone with me. So if you're listening, I dare you to be that person, that friend, that confidant, that one person that someone can count on to just pour into and pour their truth into, and not feel like they're going to be betrayed. So I encourage you to just be yourself, love yourself, become yourself each and every day.
And this question goes to anyone can answer it. To the parents out there, to the parents that's truly struggling. Of course, they love their child, but it's truly struggling. A father that is truly struggling, what can you tell them? What can you leave them with this morning?
This is not about you. I'm going to say this one more time. It's not about you. The best thing you can do for your child is to love them.
Love and support.
I've seen people whose children have murdered dozens of people still love them down.
Yes.
Don't take your time, take a warm bath, whatever you got to do to just relax yourself and calm down. But at the end of the day, this is your child. This is who they are. And the best thing you still can do is love them and do your best to understand them. And that requires work, which is not just your child telling you every single thing and educating you on this process. 9 times out of 10, they're trying to learn about a lot of this stuff. Do your own research. We have these iPhones and all this stuff. Google is a blessing, okay?
It sure is.
Do your work. That's all I got.
I think for parents who may not understand their child or may not understand a loved one and their family member, I think the best thing to do is to love them and also to listen. A lot of times when we're talking, we're trying to get our point across and get our opinion across and get our stance across that we're not listening. We're not listening to their truth and the experience that someone's going through because of our own conditioned mindset to being we're right. My way is right and your way is wrong. So I dare you to listen. Just open up your ears and take a second to say, okay, I don't understand this, but I want to hear more about it. I want to understand, how did you come to this place? How did you come to the place where you are comfortable within yourself to even share this with me? So listen.
Okay, well, if you just told me, would you like to say something? Yeah?
Um,
Come on. Take your time.
how do I put this?
From the heart.
Love is the greatest weapon. Use it. Love your child. Listen to them. Know that you may not agree with what they're doing, but respect is key. Know that that's still your child, and no matter what, it's always going to be your child. So love is the number one answer. Love and like they said, listen to hear, not to respond.
That's
Listen
good.
to understand what they're going through. And if you don't have the answers, like they said, there's a bunch of resources. Your child is your child. And again, all I can say is love them.
Well, said it beautifully. Thank you so much for being here. Bianca, Adrian, Dante.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very
For the
much.
listeners, I'm surprised that phone ain't ring because last week it was ringing. But again, this is how we do it every Tuesdays. We like to talk about topics that other people are scared to talk about. This is truly a platform to have your voice heard. So again, if there's anything that you would like to engage in, talk on, speak on, please call in 585-203-WAYO 203-9296. And I have to stress that any views that was expressed on the show is Our Voice Talk Radio. It's not Wales views, so please, if anyone ever say something that the listener do not like, do not call the radio station and blow them up. Again, it is our views. So again, thank you so much for always tuning in. This is how we do it every Tuesdays from 10 to 11. Adrian, Dante, Bianca, you have a platform if you guys are doing that.
Thank you.
Always come and speak your mind, speak your hearts. And again, to you listeners, thank you so much for always tuning in. Again, I am surprised that nobody chimed in to call in too.
It's a scary topic.
It is.
They might do disguise their
But
voice.
it's something that you said too earlier, too, Adrian. If you're truly comfortable in your skin, what is the holdback? You understand? What is truly the holdback? So again, for me, I'm very comfortable in my skin. I wanted to have these brothers in. Like I said, I know one of them quite well. I saw him right out, fresh out of high school, faded everything, fresh out of college. You understand? You understand? But look at him now, a true. He's a true. What did I say? Revolutionary. I consider him a what?
I'm just someone trying to do what's right. That's it.
That's
What
it.
I believe in. All day, every day.
And he's been doing his thing. Brotherhood Production. Want to give a shout out to Brotherhood Productions.
Thank you.
Keep doing your thing, man. Got some beautiful work out there. I've seen it. Dante, you keep being that author. You keep writing.
Thank
you
you.
keep being that audacious believer.
Thank you.
Because you truly put a stamp on that.
Thank you.
And Bianca, just met you. God bless you. Continue to do what you're doing. Continue to advocate. Be strong. Keep your head up, shoulders back. And again, Rochester and abroad, this is how we are doing it on WABC